Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future homebuyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of homeownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923. AnyMac Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC. DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage. Lo-Fi Direct. Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent. License lender. Broker number ML 338923. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License number MC 338923. Rhode Island License Lender. License number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I'm Steve Risser, along here with Justin and Alfrio. We are 8 days away from the start of the NFL season, and it is a tradition on this show. When we are a week from the season, we do our season preview. And we'll get right into it. We'll start in the NFC East, and we'll start with the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles going into this year, they have, one of the best still have one of the best rosters in the NFL. I mean, their offense is great with Jalen Hurts, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Saquon's back, still even with losing Mekhi Becton, a really good offensive line. I think their defense is, even though they lost Josh Sweat, is still one of the top defenses in the league. I got this team winning the division again. For the first time in 20 years, I got a team repeating in the NFC East. I got them winning the division again at 13-4 because they have one of the best rosters in the league. They got a really good coach in Nick Sirianni, and the quarterback, in my opinion, I know there's a lot of arguments about it, is a top 5 quarterback, great leader, one of the best leaders in the league, has led the Eagles to 2 Super Bowls. I got the Eagles doing it. I got the Eagles repeating for the first time since they had Terrell Owens in 2004 and went to the Super Bowl. For the first time since 2004, I got a repeat champ in the NFC East. I got the Eagles winning this division at 13-4. Justin, what do you got the Eagles doing this year?
Yeah, I got them going 12-5. I think, they have a very good shot to repeat. I know they lost some depth pieces last year, and that's kind of what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. A lot of, other teams are trying to take some of your pieces. But, I still like this team, Josh Duce's coming in, A.J. Dillon. You think Saquon Barkley's going to come back down a little bit to earth this year, especially for all the touches they had. Obviously, they got to the Super Bowl too, so all those extra kind of touches. And they got some tough games. A lot of their toughest games are on the road. KC, Tampa, they got to go to Green Bay. Obviously, they go to Washington once, they go to Buffalo. So I think this team's 12-5, and I think, they repeat and they win the NFC East yet again.
Yeah, I think they do. Even though they do have those tough games on the road, I get it. They have those tough games on the road. Yeah, they go to Buffalo, they go to Kansas City. They do host Detroit, but they go to Buffalo, they go to Kansas City. I know they got tough games on the road, but again, those tough games are AFC games against the good NFC teams. They got Detroit at home. They got the Rams on the road. I know it's a tough schedule, but this is a really good football team. And last year, it wasn't like it was close. They were clearly the best team, seeing the way they won the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely, they were. They were dominant, and those the conference championship game and the Super Bowl. What they were able to do offensively, defensively, but Barkley added to them. So absolutely, some of their toughest games on the road. But I still think this team's really capable, and they could take care of business. And they go week 2 in the Arrowhead and beat Kansas City. They had the blueprint last year to beat them, and then they embarrassed them in the Super Bowl. So it's a really good team. I think with this, I think last year the coordinator Fangio has done a really good job too with that defense. So I think it's a really good Eagles team, and I'm not, this is definitely a talented football team yet again, and definitely has a chance to repeat.
Talented football team. Yes, they lost a coordinator, but Kevin Patullo was on the staff, so I think they'll be fine there. Yeah, I think the Eagles are going to be fine this year. I think they are going to win this division for the second year in a row. Now, moving on to the team that lost them in the NFC Championship game, and that's the Commanders. And I do have them still going to the playoffs. I got them finishing at 11-6. I got them go to the playoffs, finishing 11-6. And the reason why I do have their record being a little bit worse is their schedule's tougher. Their schedule is obviously tougher. You know, when you play the NFC North and the AFC West, you're going to have a tough schedule. As you see with the Cowboys, you see with the Giants, the schedule's tougher. But I think Jaden Daniels is going to pick up right where he left off. Have a really, really good sophomore season. I think a great trade going out and getting Laramie Tunsil. They went out and traded for Deebo Samuel, so their offense should be better. A little bit of a concern in the run game. They traded Brian Robinson, but they got Crosby. They crafted that Crosby Merritt guy in the seventh round at Arizona. They do still have Austin Eckler too. So the run game I still will think will be decent. And then defensively, yes, the defensive line is an issue. They lost Dante Fowler to the Cowboys. I do think it's a little bit. I do think it is an issue, but they are really good at linebacker with Frankie Luvo and Bobby Wagner. And in the secondary, I think they're pretty good too. And with Sanders still and with Marshawn Lattimore. Yes, the front four is an issue, and stopping the run is, I think, still going to be an issue for this team. But I think their defense is good enough to be a Super Bowl, not be the best team in the NFC or the best team in the NFC East, but I think it's good enough to be a Super Bowl contender because of their offense. I think their offense is going to be really, really good. I think they're going to have a really good offense, and I think they're going back to the playoffs. I think the Commanders are going back to the playoffs. I got them going 11-6, getting one of the wild cards in the NFC. Justin, what do you got the Commanders doing this year?
Yeah, I got them 10-7, too, and 10-7, and I have them getting one of the wild card spots as well here. Yeah, maybe Daniels takes a little bit of a step back, not like a huge one, but he played so well last year, and it helps that they just re-signed McLaurin. I thought Deebo Samuel has looked a step slow so far in preseason. I know he missed a lot of time last year, but he's 30 now. Yeah, I think their offensive line should be improved. I know then defensively, I know they spent a lot of money to get Kinlaw in there, and I know they got Von Miller too now, but he's getting older. He had 6.5 sacks last year. Like, could this team be better rushing the passer? They brought in Wise as well, but he's a little bit older as well here. So I like this Commanders team. I think, yeah, they should be better defensively this year. I like kind of some of the pieces that they brought in, but yeah, they got to be better stopping the run. They got to be better at rushing the passer too a bit. So I think this team that gets back to playoffs and has a chance to win a game or two yet again.
Yeah, I think they do because what's changed everything is that quarterback. That quarterback had a phenomenal rookie season, one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen a quarterback have. He had a phenomenal rookie season, and I think they have a really good chance of getting back. But I just did a little. What separates them from the Rams, the Lions, and the Eagles is that defense. Is that front four? There's a lot of question marks in their front four. I mean, they do. I mean, Kinlaw's okay. Payne, I think his best days are behind him. So that front four definitely still that's what puts them not on the top tier for me, but puts them on that second tier. I know they made it to the NFC Championship game last year, but that's what puts them in that second tier in the NFC below the Rams, Lions, and Eagles. So, but I do think, especially with Cliff Kingsbury being back, that is key. I do think they're going to get back to the playoffs, but I don't think they get to the Super Bowl. I think they win they maybe win a game in the playoffs, but I don't think they get back to the NFC Championship game, and I don't think they get to the Super Bowl. Now, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, and not a surprise here, I got the Cowboys missing the playoffs again, going 8-9. On offense, we don't know what we're really going to get out of Dak. Dak's coming off 2 injuries. I mean, he's been a top 10 quarterback for the last decade, but do we know what Dak Prescott we're getting? A lot of question marks on offense. The only thing that isn't a question mark for the Cowboys on offense is the receivers. I mean, they might have one of the best 1-2 combinations in the league with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. That's really good. That's really good for them. But there's question marks. Definitely question marks in the offensive line. Tyler Guyton had a bad rookie year. You drafted Zach Martin retired. Now you drafted Tyler Booker in the first round. How is he going to be? Cooper Beebe was average last year on the offensive line. And then you look at the running game with Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. So that's a question mark. So there's a lot of question marks on the offensive line for the Cowboys. And we'll see what Dak is. And then you get to the defensive side of the ball. And then there's obviously questions there. first and foremost with Micah Parsons, having pretty much not being requesting a trade and not practicing with him in training camp. So that's a question mark. But the big issue is the middle of this defense is horrendous. Mozzie Smith has been a complete bust. The Cowboys are terrible at linebacker. Their run defense really struggled last year. It's probably going to struggle again this year. Their pass defense, I think, is going to be pretty good, especially if they can somehow get Micah Parsons back on the field. If Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland can stay together for a full season, I think their pass defense can be pretty good because Dante Fowler, they got two who had 10 sacks from Washington. They signed him last year. So I think their pass defense can be pretty good, but I think their run defense is going to be horrendous and a lot of question marks on offense. And let's not forget, a lot of question marks with this head coach. No one was interested in this head coach in the offseason at all. Nobody had any interest in Brian Schottenheimer, but the Cowboys hired him. So I think this will be a team that's in it, maybe, mid to late December. But again, I think they missed the playoffs for the second year in a row. I got the Cowboys finishing 8-9. Justin, do you have the Cowboys missing the playoffs as well?
I do. I have them as 8-9 as well. You mentioned it. There's just a ton of question marks for the team. The Parsons news too. And the other guys, the other four guys, they had 4.5 sacks last year for the Cowboys. They all left in the offseason. So, sounds like Parsons is gonna play, but who else is gonna help him around to rush the passer? Because last year they were 28th, or they were 28th in yards allowed and 32 points allowed last year. So their defense was not great. And Dak coming off of an injury. Who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver behind CeeDee Lamb? Ferguson's a decent tight end. The running back room, there's not a great one. There's a couple decent ones that you can kind of mismatch with, but there's a ton of question marks going in with this Dallas team. You don't really know. You mentioned the head coach with Schottenheimer. He's been fired a couple times. Nobody really wanted him. It was kind of a head scratching move. It was pretty late in the process, so there's not a lot of high expectations for this Cowboys team this year, and rightfully so, because there's just a ton of question marks that you don't really know how things are going to pan out with this team.
Absolutely, and the number one question mark is Micah Parsons, and the question is, will the Cowboys and Parsons have a deal done by week 1? I think they will. I know it looks ugly right now, but I think they will, because they always get it done. Last year was opening day with Dak Prescott. They always get it done. So I do think they're going to get a deal done with Micah Parsons. I think they're going to. Now, I'm not condoning Micah Parsons laying on the table during the game on Saturday, but not on Friday. On Friday night. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The Cowboys, for the most part, are at fault with this. This thing should have been done at the beginning of March. He wanted an extension done the year before. This extension should have been done. This guy is a top 5 edge rusher in this league. I think, the only guy who has had double-digit sacks in their first 4 years is Reggie. He's the only player to have double-digit sacks in his first 4 years. The only other guy is Reggie White. So this deal should have been done. And this is on the Cowboys that it has gotten to this point. It is absolutely on Jerry Jones and the Cowboys that it has gotten to this point with Micah Parsons. And why it is so been a story. The Cowboys have been in the news every day for the wrong reason. So this is on Jerry Jones, but ultimately, I think this is going to get done. This is going to get done in the next week. I think this gets done in the next week.
I'm going to say it won't.
Wow. Yeah.
Because Jerry went on a media tour last week, and that did not seem to make Micah Parsons very happy. And that's the thing about Jerry is. Yeah, he loves being in the news. He loves to go, I think it was Michael Irvin last week, Stephen A. Smith. I don't remember who else he was with last week, but and he was throwing Parsons under the bus, and in the agent. So I don't think they're in a great spot right now. And I saw something too over the weekend. If Jerry signed Dak, CD, and Parsons when he should have, he would have saved himself $85 million. So that makes a huge difference.
That's crazy. All this cap space he wasted because he waits until the end. And all these moves with like Dak and CD last year, if he paid him ahead of time, he probably gets there. There's a good chance he can get Derrick Henry. So they just don't. They can draft. I'll give them that. That's why they get into these. That's why they get into these situations, because they draft really well in the first round. I'll give them that. But the contract negotiations, and I've said this, are an absolute disaster.
Yeah, they are, and he's paying the price for it right now. And he might. It sounds like he's going to practice this week, but. Not probably gonna play the whole game, and you would love to have him out there playing a Philly offense. That's gonna be hard to stop. So
Yeah.
it's on Jerry. And yeah, so like I just don't think it's gonna get done. I think Jerry burnt that bridge, and I wouldn't be shocked unless if Jerry gives them, more than like Myles Garrett. I don't know if Parsons gonna sign that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I could see it. Listen, I could. This is out of all of them. I could see this one not working out because of the dissension between the two sides. I mean, Jerry, what are you doing calling out the agent? What are you doing
Yeah,
calling out the agent? Like you see how the Commanders worked out their deal with Terry McLaurin, and you see even the Bengals with Trey Hendrickson. They knew how to do this. They weren't offended by them asking out. For some reason, Jerry seems to be offended that Micah Parsons asked out. He didn't want to be there. So yeah, this is an absolute this is a mess. But I do think it's going to get done. But I can see your point how it doesn't get done.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see him get it done, but yeah, I think it's gonna take a lot of money, obviously. And yeah, I just think Jerry burnt the bridge, and I don't think that made Parsons very happy. So, um, so so I wouldn't be shocked if this thing gets done and he winds up being a free agent next offseason and free to go wherever he wants.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happen. I definitely could see Mike. But we'll see. Well, he might end up getting franchised, but I also could see him being a free agent.
Yeah.
I could see it happening. But in my opinion, I think the Cowboys do get the deal done by week 1. Now, moving on to the Giants, and I got them finishing in the basement for the second year in a row. I got them finishing in the basement at 6-11. Now, I do think the team has improved. I mean, this they arguably might have one of the best defensive lines in the league, drafting Abdul Carter with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence. They might have one of the best front fours in the NFL. They might have one of the best front fours in the league. I don't mind their linebacking core with Okereke and McFadden. Secondary's improved with getting Javon Holland, getting Paulson Adebo. The issue though is the offense. The offense is the issue. The offensive line, major question mark. I feel like the running game's a question mark. I feel like the quarterback's a question mark at this stage in his career. I think the quarterback is a question mark at this stage in his career. I think lack of mobility. I think the last couple of years in Denver, in Pittsburgh, definitely has not been as good as he was in Seattle. So I could see the offense struggling again. I definitely could see it. I think it's a major question mark. And I think that's why this team goes 6-11. I think there's a tough schedule. I think they're going to be in game, but I think they're going to lose a lot of close, low-scoring games. They're going to lose a lot of close-scoring games, and we'll get to the fact, we'll get to when Dart will take over. But I'm going to say this about the Giants quarterback situation, and I've said this all preseason. It's not a matter of if Jackson Dart is going to start games this year. It's when. When is he going to start games this year? So I think this is going to be a year for the Giants where, because of their front four, they're going to be in a lot of games. They'll definitely be in more games than they were last year. They'll be in a lot of games, having a chance to win. But I just don't think they'll score enough points in those games, especially when you have the potential combination of a 37-year-old quarterback whose best days are behind him and a rookie quarterback. That combination doesn't seem like a good combination at the quarterback position. And with question marks outside of Malik Neighbors and Andrew Thomas, question marks all over the offense. I got the Giants finishing 6-11 in last place in the NFC East. Justin, what do you got the Giants doing this year?
Yeah, same record as you, 6-11. I think 2 weeks ago I probably had this team at 4 wins, but I really think their defense is keep them a lot of games, and I think they're probably going to win them a game or two. Yeah, the schedule it's maybe the toughest schedule, and it's a 4th place schedule, and it does not feel like a 4th place schedule whatsoever. You're hoping that Andrew Thomas can play 17 games for you this year because he's been effective when he's been healthy, but that's been a question mark with him. And especially if you got Jackson Dart in there at whatever point this season, you love to have him, out there, and your front four is going to be unbelievable. Adding Abdul Carter, who's going to be a beast in the NFL. So, and Dexter Lawrence, one of the best D tackles in the sport as well. So, yeah, this defense will be really, really good. And it's going to be up to the offense to score enough points to keep you in a lot of games and get you over the hump. And I think there's going to be some games that, they're not, I don't think it's going to happen, but I could see them going to Washington next week and beating them because I don't think Washington's offensive line is very good. And I could see the Giants defensive line wrecking that game. And
yeah, good point. They could take a game from Washington. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so I wouldn't I think you're going to see the Giants steal a game or two where going into the week, maybe not a lot of people think they're going to win that game, but I think with their defense, they can win that football game. So, Yeah, I really, really like this Giants defense. Can the offense do enough to or just score enough points to get them over hump in any given week? So yeah, I think this Giants team, but you mentioned it too. It's about the Dart development this year, and can he look like a franchise quarterback? Because if you can with that defense, you're feeling pretty good about the future.
Yeah, a couple things. First, with the offense, the Andrew Thomas thing is a great point. Because that offensive line, outside of the first game last year against Minnesota, from like weeks 2 to week 5, that offensive line wasn't playing that bad. They were decent. That offensive line was decent with Andrew Thomas. Then he got hurt, and the O-line completely fell apart. So, yeah. So, Andrew Thomas, he's got to play 17. He's got to play at least, he's got to play a good amount of games. He can't just play 5 games for the Giants or 6 games for the Giants to have any success this year. He's got to stay healthy. And on defense, you're right. They could steal a game or two. I could see them stealing games because of how good that defensive line is. So, yeah, as you said, maybe some games, that you don't think they're going to win. Like, yeah, maybe, opening day in Washington. You never know. The Giants, the Giants were bad last year, but they played the Commanders tough last year. So, opening day in Washington, you never know what could happen because of that defensive line. They could wreck the game. So that's a good point there. But last point, this will lead me to our question, to this question. And you brought up Jackson Dart. When will Jackson Dart take over as the Giants starting QB? And I'm going to give my answer right now. And for me, it's going to be week 9. Circle it, everyone. Week 9 against San Francisco at MetLife Stadium. That is the day that I think Jackson Dart starts. That's the day where I think Jackson Dart makes his first start as Giants quarterback. That's the day because if you look at his schedule, if you look at Washington, Dallas, 2 road games, two games on the road. Now for Russell Wilson, it'd be nice if he could win one of those 2 games. That would be really nice for him. And then it doesn't get easier. You got Kansas City on a Sunday night, Chargers 1:00 game. You get a break play in New Orleans in week 5. I know it's on the road, but you get a break play in New Orleans. But then there's that 3-game stretch where they got the Eagles on a Thursday night, Broncos in Denver, and then the Eagles again. So I think out of these 8 games, they're going to start 2-6. Wilson will be okay, but not good enough to justify that he could be the starter after that. I know right now Jackson Dart is the third quarterback on the depth chart. I think eventually he will elevate to number 2. He'll be elevated. He'll be the number 2 quarterback by that point in the year. And I think by week 9, Jackson Dart will be the Giants starting quarterback. And that's a big part of this year. There's zero. There's with the schedule the Giants have, and for me with Wilson and his best day. I mean, he's not bad, but with his best days being behind him, to me there's no way Jackson Dart takes a redshirt year. I think he starts in week 9, and a big part of this season is the as you said earlier, the development of Jackson Dart, and that's why I think he starts half the games for this football team.
Yeah, I agree with you. Week 9, I know week 5 against the Saints could make sense, but you mentioned it. After that, you got the Eagles facing Denver. Those are 2 defenses you want to see.
And week 5 against the Saints, it depends on the start. Say they're 2-2, that's not happening. 1-3 maybe. 0-4, you got a point.
Yeah. So, but you don't want because after like week 9 too, it gets your schedule gets a little bit easier with some of the defenses. I know the Niners defense is all right. The Bears, it's pretty good. Patriots defense be pretty good, but like Washington's not great. Vikings be a tough one. Raiders defense isn't great. Cowboys defense isn't going to be anything special either. So you got some defenses in there too where, he could have some success against there, and it's good. The schedule's going to help a little bit there. But yeah, I think week 9 makes the most sense. Especially you mentioned it. They're 2-6. They're kind of out of it. You kind of need that spark. That's where you put them in there. A home game against San Francisco in week 9 when maybe the weather starts to get a little bit chillier outside and it's a little bit harder to sell the seat. So yeah, I think week 9 makes the most sense with me too for when he could be out there starting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that. I think Jackson Dart will be starting in the middle of the season because of how tough the Giants' schedule is and all the question marks they have on offense, which I think will prevent Russell Wilson from having the success that he hopes to have with the Giants. Now we will move on to the NFC North, and we will start with the team that has won the division the last 2 years, and that is the Detroit Lions. And for me, I got them doing it for the 3rd year. I know there's it's probably close between them and the Packers. Some people are like the Vikings too, but I got them winning it for the 3rd year in a row. I think they got the best roster in this division. I think they got the best coach in this division in Dan Campbell. I think the best quarterback right now in the division in Jared Goff. So you look at roster, coach, and quarterback. Even though the Lions are not as good, even though the roster isn't as good as last year, I still think that they have the best coach, quarterback, and roster in the division. I know they lost 2 coordinators, but the two guys they have, Johnny Morton and Kelvin Shepard, they have been on the staff previously. So that's why I like the Lions to win this division again. I think offensively, Goff is really good. Interior, 2 tackles on the O-line with Decker and Sewell are really good. Interior, the O-line is going to be a question mark with Ragnow retiring. Love the receiving core with Jamison Williams and Amon St. Brown. You got Sam Laporta. You got Jahmyr Gibbs. So really, still one of the top offenses in the NFL. Defensively, I think it's a good defense. Yes, the defensive line's a question mark outside of Hutchinson because McNeil's going to not play until November. They really don't have a good second edge rusher outside of Aiden Hutchinson. I love the linebacking core with Jack Campbell. It was a great pick at Iowa a couple years ago by Brad Holmes. You got Anzalone, you got Derek Barnes. And then in the secondary, you probably have the best safety combo in the NFL with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. You probably have the best safety combo in the NFL. Big year for Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold has got to step up in that secondary this year. They did get DJ Reed, but Terrion Arnold's got to step up in that secondary. So I think the defense is pretty good, really good offense. I don't think the record will be as good as last year, but I still have the Lions winning the division at 12-5. Justin, what do you got the Lions doing this year?
I hit the Lions 10-7 in third place in the NFC North. This Detroit team kind of reminds me of Philly 2 years ago, where it's kind of a retool type of year. You're bringing 2 coordinators. They had where you're still pretty good, but you're not at the level that you were. And maybe, and I think like next year they can have a bounce back, and maybe not even bounce back is the right word, but next year they're kind of back. They just had so many injuries last year, and I felt like last year is the year for Detroit to get to the Super Bowl. Obviously we know what happened. I think safety was the only defensive unit last year that didn't really suffer many injuries at all. Everything else, even offensively they had some too. They were just it was unfortunate. Dan Campbell's done a great job of turning things around. I think this is a really good division. I just think the two new coordinators, I know they've both been with the franchise, so that does help. But I think their offense will be really good. But I think defensively too, I think they're still gonna be solid. I just think they got some tough road games on there as well. So I'm gonna go 10-7. I do have them getting one of the wild card spots, but just taking a little bit of a setback last year for what they did last year. And maybe Ben Johnson did a great job with Jared Goff. I don't think he's going to totally turn back into a pumpkin or anything, but maybe he takes a little bit setback as a quarterback too. The new OC coming. I know they got a lot of really good weapons here, but maybe there's a little bit of regression coming too.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with Jared Goff. Yeah, you got a point. When he hasn't had Sean McVay or Ben Johnson, he's not been good. Let's be honest. Without Sean McVay, it's really Sean McVay or Ben Johnson. Jared Goff struggled. He struggled his rookie year in 2016 when he had Chris Winkie as offensive coordinator, and he struggled in 2021 when he had Anthony Lynn as his offensive coordinator. So when he hasn't had those 2 guys with him, he has struggled. But he's still, to me, he's still one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, and he's a big reason why I think the Lions win the division for the 3rd year in a row. Now, moving on to the team that will be hosting the Detroit Lions in Week 1, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And I think it's going to be another successful season for the Packers. I got them right there with the Lions. I got them going to the playoffs and finishing. I got them going to the playoffs and finishing 11-6, just like they did last year. I mean, Jordan Love, is a good, solid quarterback. I love Jacobs in the backfield. You look at they added Matthew Golden as a receiver, so good deep receiving core, and they're hoping that Matthew Golden could be their number 1, which I feel like that team's been missing, is that number 1 receiver. Decent offensive line. Zach Tom they paid. He's pretty good. And then you look at that defense. I like Rashawn Gary. Kenny Clark. Devontae White. He's got to be better against the run. So does Quay Walker. That deep, but but in the secondary, Xavier McKinney. He's a really, really good player in that secondary. Defense is decent. I think it's a decent defense. Not a great defense, but a defense that's good enough. I think this is a team. To me, there's a lot of good, but not a lot of great, and that's why I think they get into the playoffs. But I do think it's another one and done for them because there's a lot of good with the Packers, but not a lot of great with the Packers. Good coach, good roster, good quarterback, but nothing is great. Nothing is great with the Packers. If you look at the top teams in the NFC, Eagles, great roster and a top 5 quarterback. You look at the Rams, great coach in Sean McVay. You look at the Lions, great GM in Brad Holmes, one of the top 3 rosters in the league. The Packers don't have anything great, and that's why I think they get into the playoffs. But there's another one, but I think they lose in the first round again. I think they get to the postseason, lose in the first round, and go 11, and they got them going 11-6, just like they did last year. I think the Packers will be very similar to what they were a year ago. Justin, what do you got the Packers doing this year?
Yeah, I got them going 10-7, getting a wildcard spot. I think with this Packers team, they're still one of the younger rosters in the sport, and they all take that step all at the same time. I think this team could be a Super Bowl contender. I don't think it's gonna happen this year though. Love missed some time last year. Willis actually did not play that bad. I'm with you. I really like the Matthew Golden pickup or draft pick. He's a speed threat. Didn't have a ton of production at Texas, but they had a couple other good wide receivers there with him, and I think he could be that number 1 wide receiver that the Packers have been looking for since Devontae Adams was there. Christian Watson, towards ACL, so he's probably gonna miss some time. He's probably not gonna be totally healthy to start the year. Last year, think they could be a little better at getting pressure on the quarterback. They only had one guy last year that registered more than 5 sacks, and that was Shaq Gary. So I do like the Packer team. I think LaFleur is a good one. I don't like all you go back to the tush push excuses that he's making. Like, I don't love kind of the excuse making comes up with, but I do think he's done a pretty good job. You go back to the Rodgers game against the 49ers where they kicked the field goal instead of keeping the ball in Rodgers' hands. So, but I think he's done a good job here. But yeah, I think the Packers team goes 10-7. It's such a tough division, and I think they kind of beat each other up here. But yeah, I got the Packers again going 10-7, getting a wildcard spot.
Moving on to the team that almost won the NFC North last year, who lost to the Lions in Week 17. They ended up being a wild card, and then they bowed out in the first round. That is the Minnesota Vikings. And for the Vikings, I got them going 9-8, and I got them missing the playoffs. And obviously the reason why is you just don't have no idea what you're getting at quarterback. You have no idea what you're getting. You're getting at the quarterback position. And when the Vikings didn't have good quarterback play, when Kirk Cousins got hurt in 2023, that's when this team struggled and finished 7-10. When they've had good quarterback play, they've made the playoffs 2 of the 3 years Kevin O'Connell's been the head coach. But Kevin O'Connell has gone one and done in the playoffs both those years. But outside of the quarterback's obviously a question. But I let Aaron Jones, really good running back. They just added Adam Thielen, which is going to help them with Jordan Addison being suspended for the first 3 games. Justin Jefferson, to me, best receiver in football. Good tight end, T.J. Hockenson. I like the offensive line with Darcel back, and you added Will Fries, you added Ryan Kelly, so you added a couple pieces on the offensive line there. So you added some pieces there. And then on defense, I think they got one of the top 5 defenses in the league. Let's say the best defensive coordinator in football with Brian Flores. He's the best defensive coordinator in the league. To me, he is. And I like the edge rushers with Van Ginkel and Grenard. I mean, I think Blake Cashman, an underrated linebacker, and you still have Harrison Smith in that secondary. So I think their defense is going to be really good again. Just the question mark for me is the quarterback. The quarterback's a big question mark. If the quarterback is really good, this team could compete. This team could make a run in the playoffs if the quarterback is really good. The quarterback, to me, is the biggest question mark. The quarterback and, depth in the secondary. Those are my 2 question marks for the Vikings. But with me not knowing what they're going to have at quarterback and with them playing in a tough division, I got them going 9-8, missing the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Vikings doing this year?
I am 10-7 winning this division. And I totally get what you're saying with McCarthy being the big question mark. I'm gonna buy Kevin O'Connell kind of stock here with what he's been able to do with quarterbacks, and JJ McCarthy's gonna be pretty good. Like, the year that they had with Sam Darnold was so impressive, and I know McCarthy probably didn't practice a ton last year because of the injury, but I think being in that system for a year, I think he's, I know you're not going to have Addison, but you have Jefferson, you have T.J. Hockenson, Adam Thielen, they just got that deal done, and he's somebody that's very familiar with this offense as well. So I think you're going to see J.J. McCarthy play pretty well with this group, and I think O'Connell's going to do a good job with them. So I'm going to buy the stock on the Vikings. I think defensively they're going to be pretty good. Florida, I love them as a defensive coordinator. They're going to bring a ton of pressure, and I think their defense, I'm with you. I'm a little worried, or question mark about the secondary, and Harrison Smith's like 36. I know he's still a really good safety, but how much more he's got left in that tank? The Vikings have been awesome at home the last decade. They're 71-36, so they've been great at protecting home field. And I'm gonna buy the stock on JJ McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell getting it done and getting back to the playoffs and winning this division this season.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Now moving on to the Bears, and we got Ben Johnson with Caleb Williams, but very up and down. Off preseason for Caleb Williams, in Ben Johnson's offense. I think it's just a lot of question marks here. I think they got some decent skill guys with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Good, really good trade getting Joe Tooney on the offensive line. Then on defense, though, I think they're just very, very average. They're very, very average on defense. I got this team finishing the last at 6-11. I don't know what I'm getting a quarterback. I really don't. I don't know what I'm getting a quarterback. And I think this defense is very average. And that's why I got the Bears finishing 6-11. Justin, what do you got the Bears doing this year?
Yeah, I got him 6-11 as well. And this is Caleb's fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. He had 2 last year. He had Lincoln Riley, and now he's got Ben Johnson. So for a young quarterback, that's a lot of different systems here, which worries me. I love the Luther Burden pickup here. And the thing about Caleb too is he's a lot better when you don't rein him in and you can let him kind of play backyard football and he can go out there, scramble, make make those kind of broken plays, with a little bit of his legs. So he got sacked 68 times last year. I don't think that's, I think they've done a little bit better at the offensive line this year. But yeah, I have this Bears team finishing 6-11. I don't know what to expect. And yeah, Ben Johnson's a great play caller, but is he a great leader? We don't know that yet. So yeah, I'm not buying the Bears hype, and I'm going to go 6-11 as well this year.
I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot of question marks with the Bears going into the season. Now we turn the page to the NFC South, and we're going to start with the team that won the division last year, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I got them finishing in second. I got them finishing second at 9-8. This might be a surprise to people because some people think they're kind of a dark horse, Super Bowl contender for people. I think there's some question marks here going into the year. Godwin's not going to start the season. Tristan Wirfs, which is key, is not going to start the season. That's going to be key. That's going to be key with Tristan Wirfs out. And they got their first game against the Falcons too. And Tristan Wirfs is probably not going to play in this game. I think on defense there's some questions with their edge rusher, their pass defense, which was 29th in the league last year. The head coach is, to me, very, very average. I know there's a lot of hype with this Bucs team, but with a pass defense that was not good last year and not having key players to start the year, I'm saying they're going to go 9-8. And I know they've been in the playoffs every year since 2020, and they've won the division 4 consecutive years. But I think this is the year they don't do it. And I got them finishing 9-8 and missing the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Bucs doing this year?
Yeah, I got Tampa going 11-6. I hear you're saying there's some injuries already, kind of that little bit concerning. I just don't trust anybody else in this division. Is why I still have them winning it. I think their offense still, when they get Godwin back, when they get Mika Millen back, I think they'll be better. I love Bucky Irvin as well, and Mecca Ibuke, another good wide receiver. I think there could have been other needs there in the first round. I don't think you had to go with another wide receiver, but Baker got a ton of weapons that at his disposal. But yeah, I think this Buccaneers defense could struggle a bit. But I do think their offense in this division, where I don't really trust anybody else, I still think they find a way to win this division by a couple games.
Yeah, I think they take a little bit of a step back because of the guys they have out, the head coach, and their pass defense. Now we'll move on to the team that was finished in second place in the South, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. They finished in second in the division. The Falcons finished in second place in this division last year at 8-9. I think they take a step forward. I think they go 10-7. I think Michael Penix plays well. I like Drake London. I like Darnell Mooney too. Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the league. Offensive line is still pretty good. Chris Lindstrom, one of the best guards in the league. Defensively, I liked how they addressed their edge rusher. I know maybe I'm probably too much giving up a first-round pick for James Pierce, but they got Jalen Walker. They got Leonard Floyd. So I think their pass defense will be improved. Their run defense is decent. So I think the Falcons win this division. I think they win the division and they go 10-7. I think they go 10-7 and they win the NFC South. Justin, what do you got the Falcons doing this year?
Yeah, I got them going 9-8. James Pierce, you mentioned one of the guys they got. He looked really good in preseason. Yeah, I'm with you. I think they gave up too much, especially there's been off the field concerns with him in the past. Jalen Walker too. So they should be able to rush the passer a lot better this year. Penix looked good in the games that they played last year, so that's that's big for them. And they still got Drake London, who had 100 catches last year and over 1,000 yards, and Dale Mooney's a good wide receiver as well. And I like the duo of kind of Bijan Robinson, Tyler Aguilar as well. He's a good backup if need be. And 10 of the 11 starters on offense are back. I just still don't totally trust his defense. It should be better this year, but I just there's something about the Falcons organization I just can't totally trust, and I think they're 9-8. And I think they miss out on a wild card spot.
All right, moving on to the NFC South, and no. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers, who came in third place last year in the division, and I think they come in third place again with the same record of 5-12. And I know they've made improvements to their offense. Bryce Young was better in the second half of the year. They drafted Tack McMillan on offense. They got a pretty good offensive line. Got a good running back in Chuba Hubbard. My problem is I think this is the worst defense in the NFL. I think it's the worst defense in the league, and they really didn't do a lot to improve it in the offseason. They really didn't. They thought they had Milton Williams signed, and then he went to the Patriots. They didn't do anything to improve it in the offseason. That's why I think this team plays in a lot of high-scoring games, but they lose a lot of high-scoring games. I got the Panthers finishing 5-12 in third place in the division. Justin, what do you got the Panthers doing this year?
I got them going 6-11. Canales did a good job last year making Bryce Young look like a decent NFL quarterback from what we saw his rookie year. So I think they made some progress there. They got some tough games with the Eagles, KC. Obviously, they got to play Tampa Bay twice. So Eagles, KC, and Bucks. They had them on the ropes last year. A couple of those games late. So maybe they get over the hump a little bit. But yeah, I think that defense is going to be an issue. Chuba Hubbard, had over 1,000 yards last year, 10 TDs. Can he kind of take the next step this year? But it's going to help that they get Derek Brown back this year. They need J.C. Horn to take a step forward. But yeah, I think this team could win 6 games, and yeah, still third place. But was someone impressed what Canales did with the job of that team in Bryce Young last year?
Yeah, he did. Canales did a good job. But the problem is his GM Dan Morgan gave him nobody. And I know Derek Brown's coming back, but pretty much gave him nobody on defense. So that's why I think, to me, they're the second to worst team in the NFC, ahead of the team we're going to talk about next, and that is the New Orleans Saints. And to me, the New Orleans Saints are coming into this season as the worst team in football. They got one of the worst rosters in the league, and their starting quarterback is a guy who didn't win a game last year. I know they still have Demario Davis on this roster, Alvin Kamara, and Chris Olave, but to me, this is one of the worst rosters in the NFL. And I see this team being absolutely terrible. I see them going 2-15 and finishing in last place. Justin, what do you got the Saints doing this year?
Yeah, I got them 14-13. I'm with you.
You mean 4-13?
4-13, yeah. 4-13. And the guy that they drafted in second round, Tyler Shuck, their other quarterback, was in the same recruiting class Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is on a second contract now. So and he was banged up a lot. So I don't think that's your franchise guy. The OC, Nussmeier, obviously his kid's playing at LSU. They're probably a top pick. Maybe that's who they draft. And, hopefully it'll help that they get Chris Olave back. And, defensively, it's not a great roster either. And, yeah, I think it's 4-13. They're still got a lot of issues with the cap as well. So I think it's going to be a really tough year for the Saints, and to be a long year for them. And we'll see. They're probably going to be drafted pretty high, and chance to get their franchise quarterback.
Yep, it looks like it could be very possible Arch Manning goes to the New Orleans Saints. Now, moving on to the NFC, we turn the page to the NFC West, and we'll start with the team that was the closest to beating the Eagles last year in the playoffs, and that's the Rams. And obviously, you got to be a little bit concerned about this team. I do have them winning the division, going 11-6, but I can't say they're going to be better than the Lions or the Eagles because you're not 100% sure. No, you're sure. You're pretty sure they're going to get good quarterback play, but you're not 100% sure what kind of quarterback play they're going to get because Stafford is coming into the season with a back injury and it's not played all preseason. So you're not sure about that. But he's got really good skill guys. You got Kyron Williams. You got Puka Nacua, and you signed Devontae Adams. Yeah, you have a really good front. I like the front, pretty good offensive line. Like the front. Love the front. The front four is really good on defense, got a lot of potential, especially Jared Verse. Jared Verse got potential this year to get double-digit sacks, to be a top 10 edge rusher. Jared Verse got a lot of potential. Colby Turner, really good in the middle. Byron Young's pretty good too. So you really good front four. Back seven, a little questionable for them, but I got the Rams going. If Stafford is healthy, I got the Rams going 11-6 and repeating in the NFC West. Justin, what do you got the Rams doing this year?
I am 9-8, missing the playoffs. I think a month ago, I would have had to see the NFC Championship game. But when I heard Stafford's back injury at 37, I'm pretty concerned because I don't know if he could play 17 games and what's going to happen when he starts to get hit and he falls on his back or lands on his back. I don't know if he could play 17 games. I know Stetson Bennett looked good in the preseason. As your backup, and I know McVay's a good coach, but I think the outcome's could be a lot different for the team. Devontae Adams, they bring him in, but he's older. Puka Nacua has been really, really good. Um, I might be totally wrong with this Rams team, and maybe Stafford's fine, and they do go 11-6-1-5, win this division yet again, and they make a run. But I'm just very, very skeptical of this team right now, and I'm gonna have them 9-8 because I just don't know about the injured Stafford. Just kind of concerned me with this team, and they did a great job last year of replacing Aaron Donald last year, and they're still able to really rush the passer. So I think this defense could be pretty solid again. The Stafford injury just has me really concerned.
Moving on to the Niners, and they're hoping to have a bounce back year after last year as they went 6-11. Here's the thing for me: I got them missing the playoffs again, though. I know I think they'll be better, but I got them missing the playoffs again. And for me, it's all the guys they lost. All the guys they lost. They lost Tua Ufunga. They lost Dre Greenlaw. They lost Jerron Hargrave. They lost Debo Samuel. They lost Tre'Davious Ward. They lost Leonard Floyd. They lost a lot. They lost like 5 or 6 starters. I know they drafted Michael Williams. They drafted Michael Williams in the first round to try to replace, to try to beef them up at edge rusher, but they lost a lot of players. Now they still have their stars: Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. They still have their George Kittle. They still have their stars, and Brock Purdy just got paid, and Christian McCaffrey. So they still got their stars. But I just think they lost a lot. They lost a lot. Their roster is, to me, not anywhere near as good as it was when they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. That's why I got them missing the playoffs. And I got them going 9-8 and missing the playoffs. I got them missing the playoffs because of all the guys they lost last year. Justin, what do you got the Niners doing this year?
I have them 12-5. I don't love this team, but I just think their schedule's so easy, and they had so many injuries last year that I think the luck's going to kind of turn their way this year. And yeah, Michael Williams, had the most sacks in the country last year, but that was just 1 year at or no, not or he had some he had 5 sacks last year. I'm thinking the Marshall kid. But yeah, I think Marco. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, I'm thinking of him. But yeah, I still think Williams is a good pickup to rush the passer for him. I like Big Parcell now that he's fully healthy this year. Can he make that step up this year? Christian McCaffrey's healthy this year, so that's going to help their offense. I know they struggled in the red zone. I know they won't have Brandon Ayuk for a good portion in 2025, but I think their defense is going to be all right. I just think that because they play the AFC South and the NFC South, I do think they're going to they're going to pull out a lot of close games, I feel like, and they could kind of win this division, especially now if Stafford's banged up. So I don't think this Niners team's like a Super Bowl contender, but I just think because of their schedule, they're going to end up being like 12-5 this year.
Yeah, I could see them being the bounce back team, bouncing back because of their schedule. I just think with the guys they lost, and don't forget Ayuk's out until week 6. I just think that they're going to be in it, but I think they're going to miss the playoffs by a game. Now moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. This is my surprise team this year. I got them finishing in second, and I got them getting into the playoffs. Kyler Murray still is a good quarterback. I think Marvin Harrison takes a leap. Trey McBride, he's a top 3 tight end with George Kittle and with Brock Bowers. He's a top 3 tight end in the league. See, I'm not saying Travis Kelce because I feel like he's fallen off. But yeah, I think he's the top 3 tight end in the league. I mean, defensively, I like Will Johnson's going to be a steal. They went out and got Josh Sweat in free agency. I think this team, with Jonathan Gannon's job in the line, I think this team responds for him. I think because remember, don't forget, they went 8-9 last year. They were almost they were a 500 team last year. I think their roster improved a little bit. I got the Cardinals as a surprise team in the NFC, and I got them making the playoffs and going 10-7. Justin, what do you got the Cardinals doing this year?
I got them 8-9. I totally get that. I totally get what you're saying. Them being a kind of sleeper this year, but I just don't know if Kyle Murray can play 17 games because he's been banged up a lot. I know they signed a decent backup in Jacoby Brissett. And there's just something about this organization I just totally trust. And, they've done a really good job building that offensive line the last couple of years. Now they got Paris Johnson, Jonah Williams starting tackle spot. Yeah, you're hoping Marvin Harrison can kind of look like the guy that you saw at Ohio State. He really showed the separation. And James Conner looks like a solid running back around, here. So their defense is got to be better. And I think Gannon's doing a good job of getting there, and it's better than what it was. And Will Johnson was a potential top 10 pick, but he's got some knee concerns. They got him 46 overall, but maybe there's something there. And they find they still got Buda Baker, but I could totally see this team find a way to make the playoffs. There's just something about them I just don't trust yet, and I do worry about Kyle Murray staying healthy.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Kyler Murray has had trouble staying healthy in his career. If that continues this year, there could be a chance, and then they don't make the playoffs. There could be a very good chance that the Cardinals move on because Marty Asamoah did not draft Kyler Murray. Now, to wrap up, we got the Seattle Seahawks, and I think that new quarterback in Sam Darnold, but I do think why this team comes in last place, and I think this is for a last place team. This isn't a terrible team at all, but I think one reason is because they don't have Jackson Smith and Jigma has not proven to be a true number one. Offensive line issues, even though they improved it in the drafting the guard out of North Dakota State in the draft. They improved it. And then on defense, I feel like they don't have they have a lot of good players, especially in the secondary. Right? Devin Witherspoon is one of the top corners in the league, but I don't think they have that stud edge rusher. They don't have that stud edge rusher on that defense. So I think they take a little bit of a step back this year. And then talking about Sam Darnold. I mean, I think Darnold is good when the O-line's good. I think the O-line is nowhere near as good as it was in Minnesota. So I think he'll be not as bad as he was with the Jets, but somewhere kind of in the middle of where he was with the Vikings and the Jets and Panthers. I think he'll be somewhere in the middle. That's why I think the team finishes 7-10 in last place and misses the playoffs. Justin, what do you got the Seahawks doing this year?
Yeah, same area as you here, 7-10. I don't love the same. Don't paying him a lot of money. Because I think you need a good Minnesota had a really good offensive line, a good schemer, and I don't know if I know they definitely don't have the offensive line for that. So I do worry you do lose DK Metcalf, and they let Geno go, and yeah, they want Jackson to the Nigba to be the number one, but you mentioned it, he hasn't really proved that yet. I like the tight end that they got, Elijah Arroyo. There's some injury concern, but he's a really athletic tight end that could make a difference. And yeah, the defense as well. Like they bring in Dexter Lawrence, but he's way past his prime. What are you going to get out of him? You
mean DeMarcus Lawrence?
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence. Yeah, I just I don't know what he's got left in the tank here. So, and the home field advantage hasn't been as good as it once was. So from 2012 to 2019, they're 49-12. Since then, they're 15-20. So it hasn't been the same up there in Seattle. They've been better on the road. So I got this Seahawks team going like 7-10 this year as well.
Good point, and you said it. When when the Seahawks aren't as good at home, they're not as good. And when the Giants beat you at home last year, you're not anywhere near as good as you used to be at home. So we'll move on to the AFC now, and we'll start in the AFC East, and we'll start with the team that has won the AFC East the last 5 years, and that has been the Buffalo Bills. And I think it'll be no different this year. I think they're the best team in the AFC East by far. Even though the Patriots are improved, I think they're the best team in the AFC East by far. Obviously, they got the second best player in the sport in Josh Allen, really good running back in James Cook, good old solid O-line. Big year for Keon Coleman. If Keon Coleman can step up, they're even better than I think they're going to be. If Keon Coleman, if he can step up and be like that number one, because Shakir's a slot receiver, number two receiver, but if Keon Coleman can step up and be that number one, they'll be even better than I think they're going to be defensively. Not great, but good. With Greg Russo, with solid pros, added Joey Bosa, Christian Benford on the back end. And look at the schedule, too. You look at their schedule. All their big games are at home. They got the Bills at home, they got the Ravens at home, and they got the Eagles at home. I got this team winning the division, going 14-3. Justin, what do you got the Bills doing this year?
Same record as you, 14-3. This Bills team's got a really easy schedule, and a lot of the road trips, too, aren't that bad. It just like travel-wise. They're long trips like Houston. They don't have to go to the West Coast. 4 of your first 5 games are home this year, and the one road game's it's at the Jets. So not a lot of travel early for these guys. And Josh Allen coming off 40 touchdown a year, gonna be unbelievable. Joey Bosa could stay healthy, maybe he can find it, and maybe they can find something too in Josh Palmer and James Cook's been a solid running back as well. But I think this is the one seed. I think this has been this is definitely the year for Buffalo. If they want to get the Super Bowl, they're lined up to get that one seed this year. If they ever want to get it, they ever want to knock off Kansas City, this would be the year to get it.
That's a great point. They are definitely lined up to get that number one seed. And I think the biggest reason why is that schedule. Home to the Ravens, start the season. Chiefs in week 9, Eagles, I think, in week 15. And they're all at home. So this is the one. They've never gotten the number one seed. They've never gotten the number one seed yet. So this is the year they are definitely lined up to get that top seed. Now, moving on to your Patriots. And I got them being one of the most, like everyone, being probably the most improved team from a year ago. And there's a lot of reasons why they're going to be. First and foremost, Mike Vrabel, they hired a good head coach. Lucky with the way that this organization has been over the last since Brady left, that Vrabel was interested. They were very lucky that Vrabel was interested in the job, and he was out there and interested. So they hired him. Really, I think a really good hire there. And to me, too, why I got them, being what they are, I think being one of the most improved teams this year, Drake May. Second year Drake May showed a lot of promise last year. And I think the defensive side of the ball, too, the moves they made on defense, going out and signing Harold Landry, who's going to be, I think, going to be really good because he's been with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. Going out and signing him, getting Milton Williams, getting Robert Spillane, who's good against the run. And then in the secondary, pairing, Carlton Davis with Christian Gonzalez. So I think they did a really, really good job. They spent a lot of money. Elliott Wolf, he spent a lot of money this offseason. And then Trayvon Henderson has shown a lot of promise in the preseason, too. So I think this team just misses the playoffs and goes 9-8. And also, I think a big key to this team is Stephon Diggs. If Stephon Diggs can be close to what he was in Buffalo, I don't think it'll be what he was in Buffalo, but close to what he was, I think Drake May is going to have a lot of success that year. Only question mark to me is the offensive line. The offensive line is the biggest question mark for this team. They drafted Will Campbell, but Cole Strange just got cut, who they drafted in the first round 3 years ago. Bradbury's okay. Moses is a solid veteran. So I think this offensive line won't be – you can't expect them to be great. I think they'll be average at best. But that's what I think is going to hold this team back. If they're terrible, I think that's the one thing that's going to hold this team back is the offensive line. But for me, I got them going 9-8 and just missing the playoffs this season. Justin, what do you got your Patriots doing this year?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 9-8, just missing out on the playoffs this year. They're definitely improved this year. Yes, it's nice to have a head coach in the room that knows what he's doing and it's not a rat to the former or 2 coaches ago, head coach. That helps. But yeah, it's the offensive line that I'm still kind of concerned about. It's better than it was last year, but that's not saying much. You could put 5 traffic cones up there and it's going to be better than what they threw out there last year. And like Morgan Moses, trying to start the right tackle, but he's got an injury history. He's 34. How much you can get out of him. Trayvon Henderson, you mentioned, has been really good. I like Ramondre Stevenson, but like the fumble's kind of been an issue with him. I love the D tackle spots because I do think Barmore last year didn't play much. He had the blood clots. He had an off the field incident. I think it seems like he's healthy. He's looked good, and then you overpaid a little bit, I think, from Milton Williams, but that's what you have to do when you're a bottom 3 team. You're coming off a bottom 3 year in the NFL. You're gonna have to overpay to get somebody like a Milton Williams. But so I think I love the D tackle spot. They need Kyle Duggar to kind of play like he did a couple years ago.
I think he's going to be gone. I think there's rumors he's going to be gone, Kyle Duggar.
Yeah, so far it sounds like nobody's been willing to trade for him. So
yeah, because he had a terrible season last year.
Yeah, he did.
If you look at his Pro Football Focus grade, it was like under 50.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. He was bad last year, but he showed promise in the past. So you hope maybe under Vrabel he gets back to what he kind of showed a little bit. So you're hoping, but yeah, maybe he's gone at some point. But and then Kyle Williams too. That I think he's somebody that maybe by the end of the year could become your number 1 guy in the outside, the wide receiver spot. So I think they're 9-8. They're improved, but I just think that offensive line still needs some more work this offseason.
Would you consider 9-8 with the pretty easy schedule? Would you consider that a successful season? I would, seeing where they would come from the year before. I would consider 9-8 a successful season. Yeah,
9-8 would be a successful season for me. Because Drake May played pretty well. I think he takes the next step up. But yeah, I still think there's still some holes in the team that have to be addressed to get you to a playoff team. So yeah, 9-8 would definitely be improvement for me, and I take that all day.
Yeah, I think 9-8 would definitely be an improvement. And a couple of things with the Patriots. I think Duggar is gone. I think he is. And you throw up Kyle Williams. So you think he could be better than Stephon Diggs this year?
I'm not. I think by the end of the year, yes. I don't love Stephon Diggs. I'm not.
So you don't like this Diggs addition. So you're not.
I just didn't like it. No, I just most of these wide receivers are divas. I don't want that in this locker room where we're trying to build something. I hope he does. I hope he's not a diva around here, but I don't know if there's part of me that thinks he will be, and I just think his best days are behind him.
Yeah. To me, though, I think for them to be in the playoff race and their offense be functional, he's got to be good. And the O-line is got to be average. Because I think they'll have a good running game and a good defense. The O-line just has to be average. It just has to be average for me. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be great. It just has to be okay. It can't be as pathetic as it was the year before.
Yeah, no, it absolutely can't, because that was a train wreck, and May already left one game last year with concussion. You don't really need that again if he's getting hit 30 times a game, and he took off a run a lot last year, and I did a better job at the end of the year when he came back from concussion of sliding, but in getting out of bounds. But yeah, if this offensive line decent enough, they could totally, like that week 3 against the Steelers might be a huge game for that 7th wildcard spot, but
Yeah.
I would love that game to be week 13 or 14. I don't know week 3 if that offensive line to be totally ready yet. So yeah, if this O-line could they overperform somehow, then yeah, I think this team probably wins maybe 10 games and finds one of those wildcard spots.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I think they'll be in it. I think they'll be in the hunt till the end. I think every game is going to matter. I just think they missed the playoffs by a little bit. I just think they just missed the playoffs this year. But moving on to a team that's probably going to be competing. We'll see. They have the talent to compete with the Patriots for a wild card spot. We'll see if that ends up happening. That's the Dolphins. And the Dolphins had a very, very rough off season with Tyron Armstead retiring. They traded Jalen Ramsey. I know they got Minka Fitzpatrick back. They traded Jalen Ramsey. So there's a lot of question marks on this team. Tua is a good quarterback, but he has issues staying healthy. Offensive line, very, very shaky. Run game was not even close to as good as it was in 2023 last year. Receiving core is still the strength of the team with Tyreek and with Jalen Waddle. But on defense, I think there's still a lot of holes, especially in the secondary. They might have some of the worst corners in the NFL. They really do. They might have some of the worst corners in the entire league. Linebackers very average, and then the defensive line. If Chop Robinson can take a next step with Bradley Chubb back, it could be good. But this is a very, very average to below average defense. I think this team is finishing in 3rd, missing the playoffs, going 7-10. And don't forget, outside of Shane Steichen, Mike McDaniel is right there. With Shane Steichen being the coaches, which coaches' seats are the hottest. So I think this team finishes 7-10, and Mike McDaniel winds up getting fired. I think Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel get fired. This team finishes 7-10, misses the playoff. Justin, you got the Dolphins missing the playoffs again.
Yeah, I do. I'm going with 6-11. You mentioned all the issues that you got with this group, and I'm there with you. I'm not a huge Mike McDaniels fan. I haven't last couple of years. I'm not a Tyreek Hill's. Just, there was chemistry issues this offseason with him and Tua. Tua pretty much said it. I know they have a pretty easy schedule, and they to open up, and maybe they could open 4-1. I don't think that's gonna happen, but if everything goes right for him, and Ollie Gordon, somebody last year at Oklahoma State that did not play behind a pretty bad offensive line at the back, and he didn't look like anything like his former self from the year 4. His offense is not great either. Could McDaniel scheme something up for him? I don't think so, and I just think that I know they have the weapons. I know Tua's kind of been somebody that has shown a little, has been all right when he's been in there, but he's had some pretty good moments, but you just worry about the injury stuff, and then also like bringing in Darren Waller, who came off, that to be your starting tight end coming off of retirement, that the Giants got a free third day pick for in the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't love the direction of this Miami team. You mentioned the secondary is going to be brutal, going to be one of the worst in the sport. So I think this team goes 6-11, and yeah, I'm with you. I think Greer and McDaniels are looking for jobs in next year.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. Now we'll wrap up the AFC East with the Jets. And I think that offensively, this might be one of the worst passing games in the league. I think this team finishes in last at 5-12. And I think they have one of the worst passing games in the league. Justin Fields struggles to throw the ball. They don't have much depth at receiver outside of Garrett Wilson. Offensive line, I think, is pretty good. I think the identity of this team is you're going to see them in 12 personnel, and they're going to be running the ball a lot with Bo Allen, with Breece Hall. You're going to see this team try to run the ball a lot. I think defensively they'll be improved because I think Aaron Glenn's a good defensive coordinator, but the defense still won't be great. I think Sauce will have a big year. I think Sauce Gardner, he got his new deal. I think he has a real bounce back year. But defensive line is still, it'll still be good. It's good, not great. Linebackers, good, not great. I think the defense will be decent. I think the defense will be pretty good. I think this offense is really, really going to struggle, especially in the pass game. That's why I got him in last place. Aaron Glenn is trying to change the culture. I'll give him that. But I just think, with some of the losses, they lost Devontae Adams, they lost DJ Reed. I think it'll be a team that will be. This is a rebuild. The Jets are in a rebuild. They've been very quiet this offseason. They're in a rebuild with Darren Mucci and Aaron Glenn. I got them going 5-12, finishing in last place in the division. Justin, what do you got the Jets doing this year?
Yeah, I got them as well, 5-12. I think things couldn't have gone any worse last year with the Aaron Rodgers experiment. But yeah, Justin Fields is not great. And so far, in the preseason, it did not look like they really trusted him throw the ball down the field much. I think, it's a pretty low floor for this team. But, and Garrett Wilson, he's put up some really good numbers with a lot of different quarterbacks that aren't spectacular. Might be pretty hard to continue to put up those numbers with Fields throwing you the ball. And yeah, the defense be a little bit better last year, but I think after Saleh got fired, your defense coordinator's got to become the interim head coach, and the defense kind of took a step back, I thought, the rest of the year. So, and then you got CJ Mosley still, who he's kind of has not lived up. He's not really been healthy at all during this contract that he's got. So I think Aaron Glenn's kind of, he's trying to change the culture there. Penalties still seem like there was an issue during the preseason with this group as well. So, but it seems like he's going to hold guys accountable, which I think is a good start there for the Jets. But yeah, I think 5-12. I think it's been another rough year for them down there in Jersey.
I think so. That'll be rough. Yeah, I think the Jets are in a rebuild and have a rough season. Now, moving on to we'll turn the page to the AFC North, and we'll start with the team that has won the division in the last 2 years, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. And I think they do it for the third time. I think they do it for the third time. They got one of the best rosters in the league. Obviously, one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Lamar Jackson. You got Derrick Henry. You got Zay Flowers at the receiver position. You got Mark Andrews. Even though he's getting a little older, at a big drop last year. Offensive line, good, not great. I mean, pretty good defensive line. This is one of the top 3 rosters in the league with the Eagles and the Ravens. But I mean, with the Eagles and the Lions, I think this is one of the top 3 rosters in the league, especially with them adding Jari Alexander. Jari Alexander could stay healthy in that secondary with Merlin Humphrey, and you got Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties in the league. I think the secondary could be one of the best in the league. And you also drafted Malachi Starks too, so this could be one of the best second. They potentially be one of the best secondaries in the NFL. The reason why I have them winning the division, but I don't have them winning the AFC is because of this. I don't think they have that stud edge rusher, and that offensive line has got some leakage on it. I think that offensive line is good, but they've lost players. They've lost Morgan Moses. They've lost Kevin Zeitler over the last couple of years. So that offensive line, I think, is good, not great anymore. I do have them winning the division. That's not going to stop me from picking them to win the division. I got them winning the division and going 12-5. And Justin, what do you got the Ravens doing this year?
Yeah, I got them going 13-4 this year. We'll see what DeAndre Hopkins has left. You saw with the Chiefs, there wasn't much left there, and Zay Flowers hasn't been consistent so far, but he does have game-breaking ability. And Rashad Bateman, I thought, improved a little bit last year, and the tight end room is decent as well there. But they really struggled last year to generate much of pass rush without blitzing, and you kind of saw the secondary got torched a lot. Like that week 2 loss when the Raiders came back and beat them. The Browns and Sean Watson had his best game as a Brown against them. So they gave up a lot of yards to the air last year, and Alexander, if you can say he's going to help. They got Marlon Humphrey. Starks, as you mentioned, they got him coming in 2 here, but they got to be able to rush the quarterback this year. And Michael Green, the Marshall kid, another talented addition for him. But I think he's got some high upside as well. But he's pretty much he had 1 year. Yeah, he had 1 real year of production there at Marshall, but he had 17 sacks though. So, but yeah, this is big. Lamar got to take this next step, but he's been great protecting the football too. In his career, his turnover to INT ratio is 41-4. So he's done a really good job protecting the football. But in being a dual threat guy, can win another MVP. But just like the Bills, when can he take that next step?
Exactly. We'll see. That's the big question with Lamar Jackson. Got into the playoffs a bunch of times. Got 2 MVPs, but he's not gotten to a Super Bowl. So that's the big thing. There's a lot of pressure. Him and Josh Allen have a lot of pressure on them this year to get to a Super Bowl. But we'll move on to a team who's had a quarterback who's gotten to a Super Bowl. He's in the last 5, outside of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes in the last decade, this is the only quarterback in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl, and that's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And because of him, I know their defense is horrendous, and Trey Anderson is back, and they got Al Golden as their defensive coordinator. But the reason why I got the Bengals sneaking into the playoffs is because of this guy, Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, got one of the best passing games in the league with him and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I like Chase Brown. I think he emerged last year as a running back. O-line is still definitely a concern, and the defense is obviously a major concern. And that's why with Joe Burrow, I don't think they win a playoff game because this defense is terrible. Even with Trey Hendrickson, even with him. They showed it in the preseason how bad they were. Even with Trey Hendrickson, it's terrible. Maybe it could be a little bit better this year with Shamar Stewart on that defensive front. Maybe it could be a little bit improved. And I do think they make the playoffs, but I don't think they win a playoff game because of how bad their defense is. Justin, what do you got the Bengals doing this year?
I am going 7-10.
Even with Trey Hendrickson back?
I don't yeah, he's good. He's going to help their defense, but by how much? He ain't, I know he had 16, 15, 17 sacks last year. I just still, I don't know. And I do like Al Golden, but man, there's not much to work with here. I see this team get up 30 points a game again. And Shamar Stewart, he's an incredible athlete. He never had much production there at A&M. And he's kind of similar to Miles Murphy that they drafted a couple years ago. He's very similar, and it hasn't worked out with him. I think that's a risk. The offense would be really, really good, but that one play in the Washington preseason game where he's running around for his life, for 9 seconds there.
Good point there. Yeah.
Can he stay healthy for 17 games with that offensive line? I don't know. And Zach Taylor too. He's a horrible coach too. So
wow, I'd say average. I would say average because he got to the Super Bowl.
Maybe because he's gone to a Super Bowl. But would he look at Ed Orgeron?
I know.
With that,
I know.
It's Burrow's college coach. So I got 7-10. I don't think this team. Joe Burrow, yeah, maybe he could play. I just don't know if he could play Superman like he did last year. That's a pretty hard job to do.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if he could play. We'll see if Burrow could play Superman. I think he leads them to the playoffs. They don't win a game, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But if they miss the playoffs again, Zach Taylor's got to be fired. That's 3 years in a row of missing the playoffs without Joe Burrow. So that has got to happen. If the Bengals don't make the playoffs, Zach Taylor is got to be fired. But going from one great quarterback to an all-time great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. But unfortunately for the Steelers, his best days are behind him, and that is one of the reasons why I got them again with a winning record while missing the playoffs at 9-8. I got them missing the playoffs at 9-8. I think Rodgers is average right now at best. I think he's average. I know they got DK, but there's lack of depth at the receiver position outside of him. Running game is a question mark. Definitely a question mark. Losing Najee Harris to the Chargers, so the running game is definitely going to be a question mark. Going to be a question mark with them. Offensive line's a question mark. Now defensively, I think they got one of the best defenses in football with T.J. Watt, with Cam Hayward, with Patrick Queen. You also got Jalen Ramsey on that defense. Now you got Alex Heisman. So I think they got one of the best defenses in football. But their offense isn't good enough for me. And we know Mike Tomlin. He's a great coach. He's a top 5 coach. But offense is definitely his weakness. Is his hole. So I think that the Steelers they are competitive. They're in it. But I think they just missed just like the Patriots. They just missed the playoffs and finished 9-8. Justin, will Aaron Rodgers get back to the playoffs this year?
I think he does. I got him 9-8. Wow. Same record, but yeah, I think they finish second in this division. I think they sneak in there. We'll see what Rodgers has left. He was average last year. They bring in DK Metcalf, but they traded George Pickens away. So again, kind of the question all offseason, who's going to step up and be their number 2 wide receiver? Freiermuth's pretty good. And then Jonnu Smith had a good year in Miami last year. They bring him in, and Jalen Lawrence now is going to have a bigger workload, and I do like Caleb Johnson coming in from 3rd round pick out of Iowa, and on defensive end, Jack Sawyer coming in from Ohio State, played a ton of football there. Darius Slay, older, but can he? I think he can help that secondary, and that Peyton Willis, that linebacker too. Just that last year when they drafted him, he's just he's a guy that fits well in Pittsburgh, and he played well in the limited snaps that he had last year. So I think they do have enough. I do think they find a way to sneak in the playoffs, but I don't think they go much farther than that. And Aaron Rodgers gets one more chance to get the Super Bowl his second Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard. I think at this point, it's going to be very hard for him to get his second Super Bowl, seeing that he's nowhere near as good as Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens have a better roster. Now, moving on to the team we both have finishing in last place, and that's the Browns. I think this team is going to struggle. Joe Flacco, I know he was good 2 years ago, but the Browns had a much better offensive line 2 years ago and a much better running game 2 years ago. They even had more depth at receiver 2 years ago. They don't have that. Even on defense, they're not as good on defense as they were. They're not going to be as good at defense. I think they'll be improved from last year, but they won't be as good on defense as they were 2 years ago. So I think the Browns are the worst team. I think they finished 4-13. And we'll answer this question before. I think one of the two rookie quarterbacks is going to be starting games by the end of the season. Justin, first, what do you got the Browns doing this year?
Yeah, I got him going off 4-13 as well here, last place. I think it's gonna be a struggle. Joe Flacco, yeah, at his age now, I don't know how much he's got left. And they're trying to find Mac J a couple years ago, but I don't think it's gonna happen. They got Jared Judy, but drops have kind of been an issue in his career. And I know they had Deontay Johnson, they just cut him. So who else kind of steps up for him? One of the guys I think could is the tight end they drafted out of Bowling Green, Harold Fanning. I Tyler Warren was unbelievable. I think Harold Fanning was as good as Tyler Warren last year at tight end for the production that he had. And some of his better games too were against bigger competition. Like he had over 100 yards last year against Penn State. So I think he could be somebody that could be, a favorite target of whatever quarterbacks, all year under center for him. They got Myles Garrett to they locked him down, but I still think defense got some issues here. And Mason Grant too. They took a chance on him instead of going Travis Hunter. And we'll see what he can do. But they got the potential of two top 10 picks in the draft. So Cleveland, doing a lot of rooting against Jacksonville as well this year.
Yeah, and the sad part about it is they passed on getting Travis Hunter. They passed on getting Travis Hunter, and the thing is Andrew Berry, who made that trade, there is a chance where he won't even be the GM next year. Looking at the fact that the team is probably not going to be very good. Now, seeing that the Browns aren't going to be very good, this leads me to this. Will Shedeur Sanders, who they took in the 5th round, he looked good in his first preseason game, but he looked terrible in the other preseason game he started. Will he start games for them? I think he does start maybe the last 2 or 3 games. I think he does, because I just don't think Joe Flacco is going to stay on the field for 17 weeks. He could be gone midway through the season. They might go to Dylan Gabriel. That won't work. I know he's the 3rd quarterback right now, but I think there's a scenario like the final 2-3 games of the season, he could be starting for the Browns.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I think it could be the Tim Tebow situation where at first in Denver he was like 4th or 5th string, and all of a sudden he was starting. Like I think it could be a situation like that where so yeah, I think he'll start a couple games. Probably won't be a lot. But yeah, it'll sell tickets. It'll get the Browns talked about on all the national media during that week. So yeah, we'll start a couple games. The Browns will try to get some media attention there from the rest of the NFL. From the media. So yeah, he'll start a handful of games. He'll start 2 to 3 games probably.
Yeah, I could see that happen. I could see Shedeur starting 2 or 3 games. Now turning the page to the AFC South, and we'll start with the team that won the division the last 2 years, and that's the Houston Texans. And I think they do it again. I think the biggest reason because they clearly are the best quarterback at C.J. Stroud. I think they clearly are the best quarterback. Now, there are definitely issues with this team. I got them winning it at 9-8, and this is the reason why I only have them winning 9 games. Joe Mixon, he ain't going to play the first 4 games of the season. Now, their offensive line is this potentially could be the worst offensive line in the NFL. Especially the fact they traded their best offensive lineman when their offensive line was their biggest issue. To me, that made no sense. That was a terrible move by Nick Caserio. Receiver depth, I think, is an issue too. Defensively, though, I think receiver depth, that's a Nico Collins an issue. But defensively, I think this is potential to be one of the best defenses in the league. You got Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. On the back end, you got Derek Stingley and you got Lassiter. I think potentially this is potential to be one of the best defenses in football, but I think their offense is going to struggle again this year. To me, it made no sense why they fired Bobby Slowick. Made no sense why they trade Laramie Tunsil. I think their offense is going to struggle, but I think they win a terrible division. I think they win this division because it is the worst in football. I got the Texans winning for the 3rd year in a row at 9-8. Justin, what do you got the Texans doing this year?
Yep, I'm with you there. They win the division. They go 9-8, but they don't go much else. Yeah, setback last year for Stroud. But yeah, that interior line or the offensive line as a whole is not very good. It's gonna be hard to protect him yet again. Because they lost Shaq Mason as well. And Jared Patterson's not a great blocker at the center spot, and Christian Kirk, can he stay healthy? I know the production wasn't bad in Jacksonville, but the problem was he wasn't totally healthy. So yeah, I think with the Texas team, it's gonna win the division because the rest of the division is just so bad. but yeah, they're going to be able to rush the quarterback, which is going to help big time. But yeah, just some tough non-divisional games too, but that's what happens. You have first place schedule, so I got Texans going 9-8 this year.
Yep, me too. And now we'll move on to the Colts, who already kicked Anthony Richardson to the curb, and we'll have Daniel Jones starting for them. And I think Daniel Jones, again, he'll have an okay season. I think there's some weapons in Indy with they drafted Tyler Warren. You got Pittman, you got Alex Pierce, you got Jonathan Taylor. I think there's some weapons. I think this might be the best collection of offensive talent he's had around him. But I think the turnover issues are going to continue. I think he'll turn the ball. I think he'll have issues turning the ball over. Now, potentially, they could win the division with him. Who knows? And I think, as we said last week, the reason Shane Steichen chose him is they want the best quarterback, the quarterback who's playing the best right now, and that's why they chose him because him and Mike McDaniel are the two coaches whose seat is the hottest going into this season. So I think Daniel Jones is okay, but not good enough to make the playoffs or win the division. And the issue, though, is defensively. Remember last year, this defense gave up over 40 points to the Giants in Week 16, which knocked them out of the playoffs. They made some improvements with getting Cameron Bynum and Tre'Davious Ward, but not enough improvements. That's why I think they finished 7-10. They missed the playoffs, and I think it's just like it is the end for Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel in Miami. I think it was going to be the end for Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard in Indianapolis. And Justin, what do you got the Colts doing this year?
Yeah, same as you here, 7-10. The QB spot, with Daniel Jones coming in. I forgot to mention this last week. Everything's always been like the Giants drafted him 7th overall. He never should have gone that high. Like the world was always kind of against him, and he was always in a tough spot because of that. And there was probably a lot more asked of him than there should, because he never should have been a first round pick. And yeah, now probably the best kind of offensive line he's had around him. He's got some decent weapons, so maybe a fresh start here helps out Daniel Jones and helps him play a little bit better. But I don't, I think he'll be mediocre. I think that, and you mentioned that defense was pathetic last year and gave up a ton of points to some, Drew Lock career game against the Giants. So yeah, I think they'd even be a little bit better, but I think this team's like 7-10. Maybe they could somehow beat the Texans and win the division, but I think they go a couple games under 500.
Moving on to the team that has a two-way player, that's Travis Hunter and the Jaguars. And I think they're a little bit improved, but I still think they go 6-11. I think they go 6-11. There's two reasons why. First, Trevor Lawrence had an average season last year, and right now he's an above average quarterback. To me, he's not worth what he's getting paid. To me, he's not worth what he's getting paid. This is a huge year for him, especially with a new coaching staff and a new GM. Everything being new, this is a huge year for Trevor Lawrence. He's definitely got to step up. And I think he'll put up pretty good numbers with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas on his offense. ETN's okay. Offensive line is shaky. But the problem is this defense was one of the worst in football last year. I think it'll improve a little bit with Travis Hunter helping it out, but he's not going to be full-time on defense because he's playing offense a lot. So, and he's a rookie. So I just don't think the defense is good enough. And honestly, I don't think Lawrence is good enough. And I think this is why this team misses the playoffs again and goes 6-11. And it could be, and it might be it for Trevor Lawrence because of having a new GM and a new head coach. And Justin, for the Jags, what do you got them doing this year?
I am 7-10 as well. I mean, 7-10, yeah, third place. I mean, in this division, yeah, another new head coach here, bringing in Liam Cohen, who I think did a nice job last year with Baker. A couple of years ago too. I just with this Jag, mentioned with Trevor Lawrence, he's just been average. They started 2023 8-3. Since then, they're 5-18. Like it kind of felt like something was going right for him, and then injuries to Lawrence haven't helped, but felt like they had something cooking there for a little bit. It hasn't happened. But Brian Thomas had a really good rookie year. We'll see with Travis Hunter. That's kind of how much does he play on both sides of the ball this year. I think that's going to be hard to do. Getting they're playing for 17 games. Can he be on the field all those games? They did not they were not great last year at pressure rate, and Walker and Josh Allen combined for like 18 sacks, but they didn't get much else. So how much more can they get into the passer again this year? So I think it's a 7-10 team. I think they're just average, and they'll probably win. I think it helps that they have a brutal division here, and they'll try and knock off like Houston, Indy, those guys a couple times.
Yeah, the division does help them win, more games than they probably should. Now, finishing off the AFC South, and that is with the team with the first overall pick in Cam Ward. And I got the Titans finishing in last. I got them finishing 4 and 13. This team's pretty much in a rebuild. They're pretty much in a rebuild. They have a bad defense. Their offensive line they made moves on the offensive line. I'll give them that. They made moves there, but they got a bad defense. Questionable skill guys. I think Calvin Ridley's good. I think Lockett's best days are behind him. I think Pollard is above average at best. So they're going to struggle, but really, the key to this Titan season is the development of Cam Ward. I think they come in last at 4 and 13. But the one thing you got to say, the one thing you got to say about them is they got a chance to have their quarterback in the future.
Yeah, we'll see what Cam Ward can do for him. I got 4 and 13 as well here. But yeah, Lockett's older. I don't know how much you're gonna get from him. The O-line upgrade should help out Cam Ward this year, but yeah, Van Jefferson's not bad at the wide receiver spot there. This is a tight team that's got a lot of work to do here. I'm still on both sides of the ball, so yeah, Cam Ward had a really, really good year at Miami. Did not have a great defense last year either, but I think this tight team's gonna be in a contention yet again for the number 1 overall pick, and they definitely need the talent in Hall because there's not a lot of it on this team.
Exactly. Now turning the page to the best division in the NFL, and that is the AFC West. And we'll start with the team that's been in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And I got them win. I know it's going to be close, but I am winning the division again. I do. I mean, I think there are question marks with this team, though. We obviously know Patrick Mahomes is amazing, but I think there's an inconsistent running game. Really the pass catchers, Kelsey, we all know, he married, he got engaged yesterday to Taylor Swift, but let's be honest, his production has dropped the last couple of years. The receiving core and Hollywood Brown being back, I think is going to help them because that's probably their best receiver there. So I think that's going to help them. Offensive line's a question mark, especially the left side of it. They lost Joe Tooney. They got a rookie starting at left tackle. That offensive line is going to be a question mark. It was last year. It's going to be this year. Defensively, I think they'll be not great, but still good. With Spags, and with some of the pieces with Karlaftis, Bolton, and McDuffie, I think they'll be good. I think they'll be good defensively. I think, every year, they're going to win 12 games. I got them going 12-5, but there definitely are concerns with them, especially in the offensive line. Justin, you got the Chiefs winning the division again.
No, I got them going 10th place, going 11-6. Yeah,
Wow.
They won so many close games last year.
Good point. Great point with the Chiefs.
There's got to be some regression coming on that. I know Mahomes is great in the final 2 minutes. I get it, but there has to be regression at some point. You can't just keep winning all these close games. So I think there'd be a little bit of regression there with them. You mentioned it, the pass catchers. I know chance, Rashid Rice might be suspended at some point. I think end of September he's supposed to have his hearing. I think it is. We saw that offensive line's shaky. Left tackle was a big hole for him last year. I know they got Josh Simmons, but he's coming off a torn patella tendon. How healthy is he gonna be? I just, their schedules, it's on a gimme division outside of maybe you could say the Raiders. I know they did not look great in the preseason, but I think this Chiefs team is going to be in the playoffs. I just think there's another team in this division that's going to be a little bit better than this year, but they're still the Chiefs, and I wouldn't be shocked if they make a run again in the playoffs and, head back to Super Bowl. But maybe there's a little bit of hangover this year for them. At some point, there has to be, you feel like. So I got them 2nd place right now in the division.
All righty, now going to a team that made the playoffs last year, that snuck in and surprised everyone, winning 10 games. That's the Broncos. And I think they continue to be great. I think they continue to be really good. I think Bo Nix is good. I think they got a good running game. I think they're a great coach, Sean Payton, obviously. I think the receiving core is a little bit of a question. Depth of receiver is a little bit of a question. One of the best offensive lines in football, but mainly one of the best defenses in the game. This defense with Nick Bonino, with Zach Allen, with Jonathan Cooper, with Patrick Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year. I think this defense has potential to be the best in the NFL, and I think they win 12 games. I think they're right there with Kansas City. I think they get one of the wild cards. They win 12 games. They return to the playoffs. I think they're a playoff team, and they're right there with Kansas City in contention to win the AFC West. Justin, what do you got the Broncos doing this year?
I got them going 12-5, winning the division this year. I thought last year, Bo Nix had a really nice year, pretty much surprised everybody. 29 touchdowns, 12 INTs, but completed about 66% of the passes, and had over 400 rushing yards too. And I love the addition of RJ Harvey, the running back out of UCF. I think he's really gonna help this running game. You mentioned it, that defense has gotten go back to Payne's first year, they gave up 70 points to Miami. In September to now with what this defense is gonna have. So I really like this Denver team, and last year they did a really good job getting back and protecting home field. They were 6-2 after last couple of years. It hadn't been the same home field advantage as it's been for quite a while. So I really like this Denver team. I think they go 12-5.
All right, moving on to John Harbaugh's team and the Chargers, who also made the playoffs last year, lost in round one. And for me, I think they'll make the playoffs again. But I think obviously Rashawn Slater is a humongous loss. And they're going to run the football. The one thing you know about the Chargers, they will run the football this year with Najee Harris, and they drafted Omarion Hampton. They're in the first round. So they are going to run the football. You can count on the Chargers running the football a lot. So they're going to run the football a lot this year. So you can count on that. So they'll be running the football. But I think the issue is going to be with this team is not having a number one. There are going to be some O-line issues. So I think Herbert will be good, like he usually is, not great. And I think their defense is good, but it's with Khalil Mack and Derwin James, but it's not as great as Denver's defense. So I think they go 10-7. They run the ball a ton and get one of the wild cards. I get one of the wild cards. But I think Justin Herbert goes one and done in the playoffs for two reasons why: O-line issues and not having a true number one receiver. Justin, what do you got the Chargers doing this year?
Yeah, I got them 9-8 here. And I got them good in one of those wild card spots as well. They bring in Mike Becton. Sound like they're switching from tackle to guard, and yeah, Najee Harris. What they got, and I love the Omar Hampton pick. Might be more of a third down back for him, but Herbert's good. I love Trey Harris, who coming out of Ole Miss, who made a ton of contested catches. Ladd McConkey had an awesome rookie year, and you saw how much Georgia missed him last year, and Quentin Johnson always had kind of the drop issues there. Joel lived up to the expectations last year coming out of Notre Dame, but Khalil Mack on the defensive side still, he's 34. What else could they get out of him this year? And yeah, like I think that defense too throughout going to be, defense will be all right. And I think it helps that last year too, like they had a really easy schedule and they beat up on a lot of bad teams. But I think Harbaugh in year two does a good job, and they do sneak in back in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think they do. I think with a good coach and good quarterback, they do get into the postseason. Now we'll wrap up before we get to our playoff and Super Bowl picks, talking about the Raiders. And I think Pete Carroll is going to change the culture. I think he is going to try to change the culture. I do. But I think it's going to be a struggle for the Raiders. They're the worst team in one of the best divisions. Now, if they were in another division, I think they'd win, maybe 7-8 games. But I think this team finishes in last at 5-12. I do like the Ashton Genty move. I do like that move. I do like drafting Ashton Genty. Geno Smith is okay. I think he's okay. Offensive line is decent. Receiving core, that the issue is they don't really have a number one, but they do have one of the best tight ends in the league in Brock Bowers. Defensively, outside of Max Crosby, this is not a great defense. It's a below-average defense. That's why I think they're competitive in a lot of games. With Pete Carroll, they'll run the ball a lot better than they did the year before, but I think they finish in last, going 5-12. Justin, what do you got the Raiders doing this year?
Yeah, again, I'm going 7-10, finishing last in the division. They have a head coach now that will have this team more respectable than they have in the past. Yeah, you mentioned it. There's still some holes that they got to clean up. Especially on defense. Max Charge is really good. I like Geno in a dome's been in his career like 94 games. He's got a 65% completion percentage, over 100 touchdowns, 72 interceptions. So he's been better in a dome than he has kind of outside, and that's gonna help that. Good amount of their games are going to be in a dome with Vegas playing in one. So, and I like Chip Kelly coming in as the OC. I think he'd do a pretty good job, and Ashton Genty too at the running back spot. But and Brock Bowers had an unbelievable year. So I just think the defense is going to kind of struggle, especially kind of the secondary. But I do think Pete Carroll wins them with steals, maybe a game or two. And Vegas kind of goes 7-10 here. But I'm with you that maybe they would be a little bit better if they had they're in any other division.
Yeah, I agree. They would be better if they're in another division. Now, we're going to wrap up doing our playoff picks, and we'll start in the NFC. And I'll start in the NFC for me. And in the wild card round, I got the number 2 seeded Lions knocking off the number 7 seeded Cardinals. the number 3-seeded Rams knocking off the 6-seeded Commanders, and number 5-seeded Packers knocking off the number 4-seeded Falcons. Now in the divisional round, I got the number 1-seeded Eagles knocking off the 5-seeded Packers for the second year in a row. I got to beat the Packers in the playoffs. And then I got the number 2-seeded Lions, another rematch between Stafford and the Rams. You maybe get a lot of those. I got the number 2-seeded Lions beating the number 3-seeded Rams. So I got the Eagles and the Lions in the NFC title game, and I got the Eagles going to the Super Bowl in the NFC. Justin, your NFC playoff picks.
Mine is I got the Detroit Lions being the number 2-seeded San Francisco 49ers. And I also have another upset. The 6-seeded Washington Commanders knock off the 3-seeded Tampa Bay Bucks. And then the 4-seeded Minnesota Vikings beat the 5-seeded Green Bay Packers. Then I got Philly beating Detroit, divisional round. And then 4-seeded Minnesota beats the 6-seed Washington. Yeah. And then I got the 1-seeded Philadelphia Eagles knocking off the 4-seeded Minnesota Vikings in the NFC Championship game. So you can see I'm very high in the Vikings this year.
Yeah, you are high in the Vikings. Rematch of the 2017 NFC Championship game, which the Eagles destroyed them en route to their first Super Bowl. So in the AFC, I got the number 2-seeded Chiefs beating the number 7-seeded Chargers. We got two divisional matchups too, because I got the number 3-seeded Ravens beating the number 6-seeded Bengals. And I got the number 5-seeded, I got the number 5-seeded Broncos beating the number 4-seeded Texans. The Texans in the wild card round. Then in the divisional round, I got the number 1-seeded Bills beating the number 5-seeded Broncos. So a rematch of last year's postseason as well. And then I got the number 3-seeded, I finally have it happening. I got the number 3-seeded Ravens beating the Chiefs. This is the first year since 2017 I don't have the Chiefs going to the conference championship game. So, and then for the AFC championship game, I got Lamar and Josh Allen. Just like opening night, I got Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen going at it. And I have Josh Allen winning. So I got the Bills and the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Justin, your AFC picks.
For me, I got the 2-seeded Ravens knocking off the 7-seeded Steelers and the 3-seeded Denver Broncos knocking off division opponent, the LA Chargers, and then the 5-seeded Kansas City Chiefs beating the 4-seeded Houston Texans. And then I have the 1-seeded Bills knocking off Patrick Mahomes. I know you had Lamar doing it. I got Josh Allen finally getting over his demons and knocking off Mahomes in the playoffs. And then I got 3-seeded Denver Broncos beating the 2-seeded Baltimore Ravens. And then in the AFC Championship game, I got the Bills finally going back to Super Bowl, defeating the 3-seeded Denver Broncos.
Yeah, you got the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. Now in the Super Bowl, we both have the Eagles and the Bills. My pick, I don't think the Eagles are going to repeat. I think the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen are going to win their first Super Bowl in franchise history. I think Josh Allen is going to lead them to their first Super Bowl in franchise history. And in San Francisco, in the first week of February, I got the Bills beating the Eagles. Justin, your Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, I got the Bills here as well, knocking off the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Bills finally getting in that elusive Lombardi trophy they've been waiting so long for.
Yes, I think they do. I think the Bills finally break through and win. We both think the Bills finally break through and break to the Lombardi Trophy. So that is our NFL preview for the 2025 season. And that'll conclude this show. But we're going to be back in 10 minutes talking about the big matchup in Columbus. So make sure you tune in for that.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All Four Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Meat, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.